Hello coders! In this tutorial we're going to use MIT App Inventor to build a simple dodgeball app. First, you want to make sure that you're using Google Chrome as your browser. If by chance you logged into a different browser, perhaps Microsoft Edge, you'll want to stop this video, take a moment and log back out and log back in using Google Chrome. Here we are on the MIT App Inventor website. On the top left corner, we're going to click Start New Project, and we're going to name our project Dodgeball. I'm going to add an _1 here because there's a chance our project will evolve through several stages and several versions. We'll click OK. And here's our app. Let's take a moment to get oriented to this interface. In the top left corner, we see the name of our new app, Dodgeball 1. On the left-hand side, we have a palette, a list of different components we can include in our app, organized into several different drawers. We'll be pulling some of these components out in a moment. In the middle, we see a screenshot of our mobile device, our phone or our tablet. Currently it's blank. It has a screen 1 component as a home screen. We'll be building some features into that screen in a moment. Next to the right, we have a list of components. Again, we just have a home screen as our first component. And then on the right side of the interface, we have a list of properties for each component that can be customized for our app. Let's take a moment to customize our screen 1 component. One of the first things I like to do is choose a new background color. About halfway down here, we see that property, and if we click on background color, we have a bunch of choices. Feel free to choose whatever color you like. I'm going to choose light gray as a starter, and there we go. Another property that we're going to want to tune is our screen orientation. So down at the bottom of that property list, you're going to see that you can choose which way you'd like your app to appear. We could do a landscape app if we want, but we're going to find that this app works best in a portrait mode. Next, we're going to include some features, some components on our home screen, starting with something called a layout option. So on the left side of my screen, I'm going to come down here to a layout drawer, and I click on that drawer, and the first option I find is something called a horizontal arrangement. I'm going to click and drag that horizontal arrangement onto my screen 1. I see that horizontal arrangement is listed now at the top of my components under screen 1, and I see a new list of properties for that horizontal arrangement on the right side of my screen. I'm going to change a couple of these properties. I'm going to use this horizontal arrangement for my scoring and header at the top of my app, so I think some bright colors would be nice. I'm going to change the background color to something like yellow. Feel free to choose your own background color there. I'm also going to change the width and click here and choose something called Fill Parent. The Fill Parent option will actually make my component fill the entire width of the screen. And we see that there. Next, I'm going to add some components inside of that horizontal arrangement. Those components are going to come from the user interface drawer. I'm going to click on the user interface drawer on the top left list of my palette options. And here I find a label that I'd like to drag out onto my horizontal arrangement. My label is now added to my list of components on the right side of my screen, and I have the opportunity to rename that, and I will. I'm going to click here and delete the 1 and add an underscore. This label is where I'm going to be showing the score in my game. So I'm going to add the word score to the end of that name and click OK. Next, on the right side of my screen, I'm going to look down my list of properties for that label score, and I'm going to find here is the text property for that label. I'm going to delete what's there, and I'm going to type score with a colon and a space and a 0. And there we go. You can see that property is now updated on my user interface, my UI as we call it. I can now add another component. This time I'm going to be adding a button. I'm going to click and drag that button and try to position that button just to the right of my score label and drop it there. Sometimes this can be a little tricky. If you happen to drop it below your horizontal arrangement, you can just click and drag and move it back up. Sometimes it pops in too high and you can move it back down. All right, in my component list, I'm going to find button 1 and I'm going to rename that one as well. This button is going to be how I start and restart my game or reset my game. So I'm going to delete that one, put an underscore, and I'm going to give this a new name called Start Restart. I'm going to now bring another component into that horizontal arrangement. This will be another label. And I'm going to position that to the right of my button. I'm going to rename that, deleting the one, adding an underscore. This is going to be a label that displays my speed. I'll click OK. While that label speed is still highlighted, I'm going to go down my properties list and find that text. And I'm going to delete that text, and I'm going to replace it with speed :space. And I think I'll have my app start with a speed of 0. Looks like I forgot to update the text on my button, so I'm going to come over here on the right side of my screen in my components list. I'm going to click on my button. An alternative way to do that is to actually physically click on the button on the user interface, but either way, once that button component is highlighted, I can come down this properties list on the right-hand side and find the text. And I'm going to rename this button or relabel it Start/Reset. All right, my user interface is coming along nicely. I'm noticing that these labels in this button is kind of jammed to the left, and so I'm going to reformat this a little bit. In my components list on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on the horizontal arrangement, and I think I'm going to change this align horizontal instead of left. I prefer to align center. I think that looks a little bit better. And then for my align vertical, I'm going to choose center as well, and I think that looks good. All right, so that's our header for our user interface. That'll show us the score and the speed and allow us to reset our game. Next, we're going to add something called a canvas. The canvas is kind of the play space of the app. That's where the action will happen. That's where our characters will move around and the dodgeball will actually be played. To find a canvas, we go to the left side of our screen and look down our list of drawers here, and we find one called Drawing and Animation. When we click on this, we're going to find a canvas which we can click and drag out onto our user interface right below our header. With this new canvas, we have a new list of properties on the right-hand side. So let's make some adjustments here. I'm going to change the height of my canvas by clicking there and making this 405 pixels. This should fit nicely on most mobile devices. And click OK. And then I'm going to adjust the width of my canvas to 300 pixels. And click OK. I'm noticing that the canvas is kind of pushed to the left of my screen. I'd like to center that, so the easiest way to do that is to come over here to my components list and click on screen 1. And like we did with our horizontal arrangement, we're going to change our alignment and choose Align Horizontal Center. That looks good to me. All right, on our canvas is where we're going to play our game of dodgeball. So we're going to need a couple components there. So over on the left side of our screen, within our drawing and animation drawer, we're going to drag out a ball. And we're also going to drag out something called an image sprite. A sprite is a character or an object that just moves around on that canvas. For this version of our dodgeball app, I think it'd be fun to make that image sprite a cat. So I'm going to rename that image sprite component, deleting the one, adding an underscore, and just typing cat. Now for that sprite, it'd be nice to have an image, a character, something fun to look at. So to do that, we're going to jump over to our Google Classroom and download some files. So you might need to pause the video here, or if you have Google Classroom open in a new tab in Chrome, we can click over to that Google Classroom page. Clicking over to Google Classroom, we should find our assignment for the Dodgeball game app tutorial. When we click this, we should see a couple files, an image file and also an audio file that we'll be using in this game. We're going to right-click on this image file, and we're going to open the link in a new tab. We can see this cat sprite PNG tab has been opened in Google Chrome. I'm going to click on that tab. This is the sprite we're going to be using for our game. And as I move with my mouse on this screen, I can see this download option in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to click on that download option. And way down here on the left side of my screen, I'll see my cat sprite. As long as I see that there, I'm good. Next, I'm going to come over here to my Google Classroom tab again. I'm going to right-click on my cat scream audio file, open link in new tab, click on that tab. I don't see as much here, but I'm going to again find in the upper right-hand corner a download icon, click that one time, and I should now see both of my downloads in the bottom left-hand corner of my browser. If you had any trouble with those downloads, please stop the video here and ask for some help. But moving ahead, we're going to now click on our MIT App Inventor page, and we're going to upload those files to some of these components. So here I am on my image sprite cat, and over on the right-hand side of my properties list for my cat image sprite, there's an option for a picture. If I click on picture, I have the opportunity to upload a file. And I need to now choose that file from my computer. So I'll click the Choose File button. And I see a bunch of different options here. Now, depending on what computer you're using, you may or may not go to a particular destination that's helpful to you. The destination we're going to need is our downloads destination. So if we click on Downloads, we will hopefully see a list of files, including the last two files that you just downloaded from Google Classroom. If you don't see them, please pause the video and ask for some help. But if you do see them, we can click on our cat sprite file. This is the image we want for our sprite. And then we will click OK. Looks like my OK button is a bit hidden here, so I'm going to slide this screen over. There we go. I'm going to click Open. And then I've got my cat sprite file listed here, and I'll click OK. All right, there's my cat sprite. It's a bit larger than I want it to be. It's going to be really hard to play dodgeball if my image sprite is that large. So I'm going to take a moment to adjust the properties for that cat sprite. So image sprite cat, and I come over here to the right-hand side of my screen, and the properties I think I'll use for my cat will be 100 pixels for the height. Clicking on height, typing 100 pixels, and OK. And then for the width of my sprite, I'll click on width, and I'm going to click on pixels, and I'll make that 70 pixels for the width and click OK. All right, that looks a bit more manageable. That takes care of my cat image sprite. I think I need to do a couple other little adjustments here to my components and properties. That ball is a little bit small, so I think I'm going to click on my ball property and adjust the radius of that ball. I think I'll use a radius of 20 pixels. And when I was in elementary school, all of our dodgeballs were red, so I think I'm going to choose a color red. Feel free to choose whatever you like. Okay, our user interface is almost done. One of the last things I'd like to include is some audio here. Whenever my ball hits the cat, it might be fun to hear a sound. So I'm going to come over to the left side of my screen here, and I'm going to look for a media drawer. And if I click media, there's an option called a player. I'm going to drag this player out onto my user interface. But when I let go, I'd like you to notice that the player actually appears down below of my user interface. It's known as a non-visible component. We don't need to actually see it on the screen. We just need to know that it's been built into the app. With my player now in my components list on the right-hand side, we have some new properties, and one of those is a source file for whatever sound we would like to play. So I'm going to click on source. I don't want to play the cat image. I need to upload a new file. So I click there. I'm going to choose a file from my computer. And this is where I'm going to choose the cat scream from my downloads folder. So cat scream, click open. I see cat scream here. I click OK. And now here I have a source of cat scream built into my player. All right, so in review, we have a nice header here with a score label, a button for starting and restarting our game, a speed label. Our game is going to get faster and faster as we play, make it a bit more challenging. We have our ball component here. We have our cat sprite, which will be able to try to dodge the balls. And I think we're ready to start to do some coding. So in part 2, we're going to start adding some code and functionality to this app.